Hello and welcome to Sportscast Jersey. Today we are joined by one half of DragonFish Row, Peter Wright.
Well, we didn't know how to row basically. So 2 years ago we kind of entered this never having been on a rowing boat. And I think my final week in Jersey is, I was saying goodbye to everyone and wrapping up things at work, and the reality was hitting me a lot harder. I think the first week there was a bit of tension, probably more me being quite flaky, to be honest. I'd never done anything like this where you're so out of control with what you're facing, and it took us 54 days non-stop. Yeah. I think to date we've got about nearly £8,000 on our sports giving page. We are really trying to drive that up to £10,000.
Hello and welcome to Sportscast Jersey. Today we are joined by one half of DragonFish Row, Peter Wright. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm not bad, thanks, Dan. I'm not bad at all. I've been back a week, so slowly getting back into the swing of things.
Yeah. Well, let's just start with a brief explanation for people who may not know. What have you just completed? How have you done it? And just explain the challenge first of all. What was it?
Yeah. The challenge is a unsupported non-stop row from La Gomera in Tenerife to Antigua, distance of 3,000 miles, and we've basically it's a rowing challenge, and we've just done it as part of an organised race called the Talisker Whiskey Atlantic Challenge, and it took us 54 days non-stop.
Yeah. Incredible. When did the idea first come about? When did you sit down and think, oh yeah, I want to do that?
Yeah, well, I say we did it as a pair. So my good friend Steve Hayes and I, we did it in the pairs category. It actually came about via Steve. I think this has been in his head longer than mine. In fact, I don't think it had even entered my head. And so he sent me an email just laying out that he was thinking of doing it, and he'd actually prefer to do it as a pair rather than as a solo. So his first port of call was to kind of ask me if I fancied it, and he kind of spelt out what was involved. So I think I read it with a combination of excitement and horror, and quickly agreed though that I fancied it.
Had you done like any big challenges prior to this one?
Yeah, we both done some big challenges, but mainly kind of running, cycling, and swimming. More so running. So we'd both been quite experienced in multi-day running events or long individual running events, lasting up to 2 days. But we'd never learned to row. Well, we didn't know how to row basically. So 2 years ago, we kind of entered this never having been on a rowing boat. And the next thing is we're kind of entering one of the biggest rowing races there is globally. So that was quite daunting.
Yeah. How was I suppose you had to go away and learn how to row in that time?
Yeah, we had an initial meeting. We met down a hotel and had a little brainstorm about what our tactic was going to be on the projects. We were thinking everything from how we were going to get the funds together, who we were going to fundraise for, and I kind of said to Steve, maybe we should join the rowing club and learn to row. And he kind of said, oh yeah, I hadn't thought of that. So that was quite a comical moment. So we actually, the Jersey Rowing Club just been fantastic. We knew they did have a go row sessions for novices, which they do each year, and they run a few sessions. And fortunately, there was one coming up in a couple of weeks. So we got ourselves down there, walked into the club, announced ourselves and what we were planning to do, and half expected to get kind of laughed away, but no, they were absolutely brilliant with us. And we jumped in a team of 4. We learned the basics, and we took it from there.
Yeah, amazing. Leading up to the challenge, weeks, days before, how nervous were you going into it? Were you confident, or were you really?
Yeah, I can't talk for Steve really, but I was was really nervous. I think when we had to go out to Spain for 2 weeks before the actual challenge started to do a number of kind of final checks on the boat and lots of admin. And I think my final week in Jersey is, I was saying goodbye to everyone and wrapping up things at work. And, the reality was hitting me a lot harder. And, obviously my family were going to come out to Spain for the start of the race, but it started dawning on me how much I was going to miss them and a lot of things. And yeah, so I got to Spain and I started getting very nervous actually, and seeing all the other competitors and yeah, but equally I was trying not to think too much about it either. I was just trying to think, just go with it, take each day as it comes, and yeah, go with the flow really.
Yeah. What was it like, the fives with the other competitors? You said it was a race, but is it
Yeah,
a friendly kind of environment, or were they?
absolutely. Yeah, there was 43 teams there, ranging from solos all the way up to teams of five. So you quickly got to the town itself, or the place itself, La Gomera, like an island. It's quite a small community for those that have been there, and you quickly spot the rowers kind of walking around town, with their kind of t-shirts on, their kind of their club colours, and yeah, we quickly got to know a lot of the teams. We'd known a lot of the teams via social media. We'd been talking that way, but it's the first time we'd got to meet them face to face. So there was a lot of socialising, down the pub and in restaurants, which was good, and a lot of time on the boat, getting things ready, inspections, getting the boat in the water. But yeah, it was a friendly rivalry. It actually became like a family down there.
Yeah.
Everyone had each other's backs. It wasn't overly competitive. We all were going into it being competitive, but we were all kind of looking out for each other and kind of wanted each other to be safe.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it was a challenge. Yeah.
Yeah. I want to talk about the boat as well. Obviously, that's a key element to the challenge. How
Yeah.
did you come about getting it and knowing that was the right boat for you?
Yeah, well, we normally with these boats, they do a crossing, and then often before the crossing, they're up for sale. Someone's looking for the next owner. So we knew Steve had been looking for a boat for us, and he'd been checking on all the various social media chat groups, and he found one called Sonia Atlantico, a pairs boat that had done the crossing 3 times and was about to do it for the 4th time. And we'd heard it was going to be for sale, picking up from Marseille at the end of this challenge. And we were restricted on our budget. We knew we had to kind of get something on the cheaper side. And Sonio did tick the box for that, given that it was old. But it came with a good CV. We'd heard that it never capsized. It had 4 attempts at crossings and it completed them all. We knew we weren't going to break any world records in it, but we knew it was capable of being competitive and getting us a good finish. So we quickly put down a deposit, and we arranged to get it picked up from Marseille once the lads had done their crossing.
Yeah, yeah, amazing. Moving on to the challenge now. What was it like out there? What was a typical day? Was it much of the same, or was every day different?
Yeah, there wasn't really a typical day. It was, the typical day part of it was that you were on a boat surrounded by blue ocean and couldn't see any land. And also, I guess the structure around it, we quickly developed a system. We stayed on UK time on our watches just to keep things simple. So between 9 a.m. and 9 p.m. we did 1 hour rowing, 1 hour off, due to the heat and also the fact our backsides were pretty sore at this point. And that would just involve one of us rowing, maybe the other one hanging out at the back of the boat, just talking to the other one. When it went to night time, we did 2 hours on, 2 hours off. So we had like more of a shift pattern where we were sleeping and trying to get some sleep. So a typical day would be probably 4.5 hours sleep maximum for one of us. That's where I guess the typicalness of the day ended. In terms of what you were facing, sea state would be different each day. We had lots of issues with equipment failure, which a lot of the fleet did as well. So we'd have different challenges to face each day and have to overcome them, and then just try and row as hard and as far as we could each day.
Yeah. How did you fuel as well? Like, obviously you're out in the sea. How did that work?
The fueling. Yeah, basically, we took a lot of advice off Kit and Paul at True Food locally, pre-row. They partnered with us, and they gave us a good idea as to the type of stuff we need to be fueling up on, and the amount of calories we need to be getting in ourselves each day, which was proportionate to our weight, but was about 6,500 calories each. So we spent a lot of time with them, and in the end, we put together like a shopping list of what we wanted to take in terms of freeze-dried food and snacks, and we bagged it up individually per day. And basically, it would involve each of us pulling out a day pack of food and getting through that each day.
Yeah. Amazing. How good was it having each of you say when one was row and one was support? How good was it to have it? Was it ever too much? And by the end, you were like, "Oh, glad that's the end of him."
No, not from my point of view. I mean, so Steve might think differently, but I don't think he does. But yeah, I think initially we did have a quite an honest chat at the beginning, just saying, look, if there's something that needs to be said, if there's something, we're just going to say it. We're in too big a challenge. We're in too small an environment, and we're in a dangerous environment as well. If something needs to be said, we need to kind of have it out and say it. So we are good mates, and we're still good mates, but we agreed that honesty was the best policy. I think the first week there was a bit of tension, just probably more me being quite flaky, to be honest. I was struggling to adapt. I was slower at adapting than Steve. There are a few things probably that were bugging Steve about me, and I sensed things were a little bit off atmosphere-wise, so I just challenged him on it. And he was very honest with me, and he just said, look, this is kind of what's bugging me about what you're doing. And I listened, and I agreed with some of it. I didn't agree with all of it, but the bits I did agree with, I took him on board and just thought, I need to get my act together a bit here and sort it out, which I did. And then from that point on, it was absolutely fine.
Yeah. And how good was that support for each other as well?
It was invaluable, just knowing he was there. Even though a lot of the time you're effectively doing it on your own, you're rowing and he's sleeping, so he's out of sight in the cabin, or the other way around, just knowing he's there. So if quite often we'd have an issue which we knew would require a couple of hands to fix, so just knowing you could kind of bang on the door and say, look, sorry to bother you, mate, but I need you out here just to kind of help me with this, or just if you were having a particular low day, or you'd have someone to bounce things off, or even just we were telling each other jokes. We had a good mate back home who was sending us jokes via WhatsApp, and we were just quite often sat at the back reading each other jokes and having a bit of a giggle. So anything to lighten the mood, lighten the day. It was
exactly. You mentioned you had bad days, moments. How tough were they as part of the challenge as well?
Yeah, I mean, very tough. It became, I think I'd never done anything like this where you're so out of control with what you're facing. Anything I'd ever done before, land-based, you kind of always had that safety wrapper that you've got a working mobile phone on you, and kind of help is never too far away. And if you want to kind of almost quit the event, you kind of can. It's like a checkpoint away, but if you want to pull out. But this event was just different. It was each day you're like, we're on this boat, we're on it for the long haul, we've got to make it work. And the hard bits for me were the equipment failure we had, which each time it happened, you'd be faced with, is this going to jeopardize our crossing? Is it going to significantly delay it? Which means more time away from friends and family. And I found those bits very hard, because you just couldn't control them. You never knew when they were going to happen. And then you just have to try and somehow fix them on a very small boat that's moving all over the place. So yeah, it was, there were some pretty low moments there, but again, you just take each day or each hour as it comes, each day as it comes, and together you troubleshoot and you get through it.
Yeah, and obviously you were away for Christmas as well. How was that?
Yeah, that was weird. It was. I guess we mentally prepared ourselves for the fact we would. We made a point of doing some videos for back home and calling our friends and family. We had a working sat phone, so we could call people whenever we liked. The quality wasn't brilliant, but it was possible. So we both were able to check in on loved ones and have good chats. We had a bit of a laugh on the boat. We put Santa hats on and had a Christmas Day swim and all of that. But Christmas was actually difficult. Christmas Day we enjoyed. We had a moment in the morning where we opened presents from back home and say had a swim, but then some really terrible weather hit us in the afternoon, and that lasted for 4 to 5 days, and that resulted in us being pretty much stuck in the same position for that period of time.
Yeah.
So Christmas wasn't exactly a barrel of laughs for us, to be honest, but we got through it.
Yeah. Obviously there was a high of finishing, but during the challenge, what were your standout kind of highs of the challenge?
Yeah, I think there's a few actually. I mean, firstly, and consistently, any wildlife encounters. So we did come across dolphins and whales and a couple of turtles kind of early on. And then we had, other visits throughout the challenge as well. And that was always a high. Rowing at night under the stars, when you had it was just incredible. Particularly when you're out there on your own and you just sort of you just looking up at the sky and just really taking in the moment. But other highs, I think for me, particularly were the we had no people contact out there. But we did. We were able to talk to people, friends and family, or communicate via WhatsApp. But we didn't have any face-to-face contact with anyone. And we had 2 moments out there where one of our competitors, a team called Two in a Row, who we were kind of pretty much competing with the whole way in the pairs category, they actually overtook us, but they did it right next to us.
Yeah.
That was an incredible moment where their boat lit up and we suddenly started having a chat, quite close together. And they were a great couple of lads. And secondly, we came across a cruise ship, and we were able to get on the communications device with them as well and have a chat with them. And they actually did a sail by past us, and all the passengers were out on deck, sort of taking pictures. So that was quite an uplifting moment, actually, just to have some meaningful people contact.
Yeah.
But the other highs, I think we got wind really that how well we were being supported back here. Which we were quite sort of surprised by, really, in terms of the volume of support we were getting, and that was really a high for us, and it kind of kept us going.
Yeah. I was going to speak about obviously it was a race. I was going to ask how many other boats did you actually see on the race as well once you got deep into the competition?
You didn't see any. You really don't see any. I think the last boat we saw was probably 2 or 3 hours into the race, and then everyone's going off in their own way. And then I think when you're looking at the tracker, all the boats look like they're quite close together, but if you measure the distance between the 2 nearest boats, you're probably looking at about 4 or 5 miles. So you can't see. So no, we didn't, apart from the one encounter we had with Two in a Row, and we didn't see them that clearly. We didn't see any other boat at all. Which is quite odd. I think we took an interesting route at the beginning. I think we headed more west when all the other teams headed south. So that was another reason why we didn't see many boats from the beginning. Yeah,
that's interesting. Obviously finishing. Let's talk about that moment. We've seen the pictures, we've seen the videos. How good was that?
It was amazing, actually. We were sort of almost I found the beginning of the race, or the early parts of the race, easier from the sense that we had such a long way to go that you never really thought about finishing too much. You just focused on each day as it came and tried to row as long as you could. And I think when we had the 1,000 mile to mark, went through the 1,000 miles to go mark, I started thinking about, actually, we could have this race done by this date. And that was quite a bad trap to fall into, because it suddenly we thought we were at one point we were going to finish at the end of Jan, and then it kept getting pushed back. So we were thinking about the finish and that we were ready to hit land and see our loved ones, but then we hit some bad weather at the end that was pushing us off course, not working with us at all, and our finish got delayed. But we managed to get around that, correct ourselves a bit, and then get back. But yeah, I mean, as soon as we knew definitively when we were going to finish, we were just kind of almost just trying to take in what had just happened. It didn't quite feel real. We could see, with 20 miles to go, we could see Antigua, and then the final 20 miles went really quickly, and then we were finishing in the dark as well. We were finishing about midnight, So that was quite tricky navigationally to get ourselves into where we were getting into. There were some last minute dramas. But yeah, it was just brilliant, at the end, just to know we're hitting land and just to kind of actually realise what we'd just done.
Yeah, and that reception at the end as well.
Yeah, I mean, the reception was awesome. And the fact that we had other competitors there, we had friends and family, but we had other competitors, particularly like the two in a row guys that they'd actually, just beaten us at the end of the day for the pairs category. But they were there cheering us in. One of the lads had even lost his voice. He was cheering so hard for us, which was quite humbling, actually. And so it meant a lot to see everyone.
Yeah, obviously it was a race as well. How
Yeah.
pleased are you with the time and the way that you did it?
Yeah, we're delighted. We went in with we had no. It was hard to kind of say what our goal was. We came out with 50 days because that was sort of round about the quickest time the boat had done it in before. So we thought we'd like to be competitive in that respect. But we were open-minded. We thought we could be quicker than that. We could be slower than that. I think with each year's race, you don't know what you're going to get. Each year's different. And I think this year, from what I understand, was quite a tough year, like one of the toughest on record. And, we started off the race going into headwind. We had kind of some really bad weather in the first week. And then, we also had all the tough weather to deal with at the end. So for us to do 54 days whilst losing 5 days to being stuck still, we felt was quite a huge achievement.
Yeah.
And we were really chuffed with how the boat performed. As I say, it took some heavy whacks. We were pretty certain we were going to be capsizing on numerous times, and we never did. We never came close. The boat took some heavy blows from side-on waves, and always stood firm.
Yeah.
So we were, from a competitive point of view, we were pretty chuffed. We went into it to be competitive, but I think if anyone ever asked us, we talk that down just to say. But we were definitely trying to be competitive.
Yeah, amazing. Let's talk about the charity side.
Yeah.
How important is that side, and who are you doing it for?
Yeah, we've nominated 2 charities. So number one, Macmillan Jersey. So that they're kind of a charity that's definitely close to Steve and I, in terms of we've had close family members impacted by a cancer diagnosis. I've done a lot of fundraising for them before, so I definitely wanted to nominate Macmillan for kind of to be a beneficiary of this challenge. Secondly, Durrell. Again, we're keen supporters of Durrell. We've both supported them on an event we did in the Amazon jungle back in 2015 together, Steve and I. So we wanted to keep up that relationship, and we felt there was a lot of synergy with a particular rewild project that Durrell were running to our challenge. Given the fact our row was about as carbon neutral as you could kind of get. So we wanted to kind of go for both charities, and I think to date we've got about nearly £8,000 on our sports giving page. We are really trying to drive that up to £10,000 if we can, and then we've got other ways we want to fundraise in terms of kind of motivational talks and about anything really. The talks we're kind of putting it out there to anyone that would like a talk. We're asking like a fee for our charities in exchange, but anything from the physical part of it to the the kind of mental aspect to it, to be honest. It is a challenge that's very much in the head. So we're open to doing talks about any kind of this subject matter, and getting the fundraising up as high as we can.
Yeah, amazing work. I guess the last question is, what's next for you, and what's next for Steve? Is there anything on the horizon?
For Steve, I believe he's entered a cycling race in Wales called the Dragon, which is a 300k cycle through Brecon Beacons, up and down massive hills.
Yeah.
For me, not a lot, to be honest. I sort of was quite exhausted after this one in terms of all the time it took on planning the project, managing all the stuff behind the scenes, and then the physicality part of it. So I've decided I want to take a bit of a breather from anything huge. That said, I'll be getting back down the gym and trying to stay fit, iron up some of the local challenges around here. So I'll definitely be taking part in them. But in terms of anything big ticket that involves overseas travel and all the rest of it, I think I'm temporarily retired.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can't really blame you. Can't blame you. I guess a final question. for anyone looking to do any kind of challenge which is physically or mentally challenging, what are your kind of top tips for them?
Yeah, I mean, I think firstly, I mean, I think don't be in, research the event that you're thinking of doing, but don't be. I think seize the day, seize the moment. My view is kind of life's too short. So if there's something you fancy doing, just have a look at what's involved, research the event, talk to people that have done it. But yeah, I think just go for it simply because I think me personally, whilst I'm competitive with myself. I think a lot of people talk themselves out of doing things because they're scared of coming last, or they're maybe scared of being back of the pack, and that part of it has never bothered me before. I kind of think you're last actually if you don't even enter the event or you don't even do it. If you actually do something and you finish last, you're not really last. You still achieved the event, and no one ever asks you what time it took you or where you finished. It's just about, did you achieve what you set out to, and did you have fun? And I think if you can get into something and get something out of it, and it's great for the well-being to kind of set the bar high, to get out whichever discipline it is, being running, swimming, cycling, walking, whatever, and just breathe in some air and get yourself fitter and just feel more positive in life anyway. So I think my simple advice is just kind of go for it. Understand what you're up against. Some of these events do require you to have certain skills or have the right kit. So, for example, if you're going to go up in a mountain, make sure you take all the right gear to be up in a mountain. Otherwise, mountain rescue aren't going to be thanking you when they have to come and rescue.
Yeah,
it's simply just seize the day and go for it, basically.
Yeah, amazing tips. Thank you for coming on. Well done on the challenge. Absolutely brilliant from both of you. Yeah, thank you for coming on the podcast.
No, pleasure. Absolute pleasure.
Right. Thank you for watching, guys. That was another episode of Sportscast Jersey, and that was with Peter Wright. Another episode is coming soon.